What she is a lawyer, an author, a mother, and a feminist. And because of that, she's been a center of controversy. Maureen McTeer has been condemned as a selfish opportunist, praised for her political strength. She's been torn apart by humiliating defeat and has used it to mature. Now, after 7 years in the political spotlight, Ms. McTeer is beginning to come to terms with her image. The Journal's Keith Morrison prepared this profile.
What do you say about a 23-year-old political wife, suddenly the wife of the leader of the opposition, who won't use her husband's name? What do you say if she seems aggressive, even strident, tougher than her years, while her husband seems somehow naive for his? In the press gallery, they didn't know what to say. Often as not, didn't like her. Sometimes made it a joke, sometimes still do. But for 7 years, Maureen McTeer has survived all that, has changed, and is beginning to notice that people's opinions of her are changing too.
You'll be this in, you know the way.
Calgary, the high and mighty of the Alberta Tory party have come to dinner. Waiting to join them is their national leader, Joe Clark, and at his side, his most loyal supporter, Maureen McTeer. Loyal supporter and now increasingly political asset. But it hasn't always been that way. More than once, that woman they're cheering has been called the bane of the Conservative Party. She and her determined views rankled the Ottawa establishment. But tonight, the welcome is rousing, and it says this couple has come a long way since the disaster of 1980.
As people who want to maintain that system which has served this country so well, we naturally accept that result and accept the defeat that our party received at the polls tonight.
Suddenly and remarkably, the Liberals were back. And the question in Spruce Grove and the country was how long Clark would be able to hang on to the leadership.
I was all for leaving in 80. I thought, this is enough of this nonsense. I think there's something else. There must be another easier way to earn a living than this. But I think in retrospect, he was right. I mean, he had to stay. What would there be had he not stayed?
It was not her first defeat. This is 1970, the Ontario Leadership Convention.
You look very nice.
I didn't want you to say that. But yeah. Maureen McTeer, University of Ottawa.
Her feminism was established. So was political enthusiasm. She worked hard for candidate Bert Lawrence, and that went nowhere.
The order of finish is Davis, Alan Lawrence, McHugh, Welch, Bert Lawrence.
For McTeer, defeat has never been easy to take.
Maureen had been fired by the research office for spending too much time on politics outside the office, and she heard about this young Alberta MP and thought it would be kind of fun to try working for an MP.
That rookie Alberta MP was Joe Clark, on his way up fast. They married, and this time her man won.
Mr. Clark, 1,187 votes.
The headlines, remember them? Said Joe Who. Right from the start, he had image trouble. On TV, he looked somehow soft and naive, and she looked tough.
The Joe is a wimp questions, the Maureen runs the household, that sort of thing.
Most women run the household.
Yeah. I mean, not the household, runs his life.
I don't see him enough to run his life.
Yeah. But you've obviously heard those kind of comments, and
sure.
I'm not being specific about it. But how did that whole image, how was it created? And
Well, I think there were a variety of factors. I think the fact that so few people who had to quickly comment on who was this new leader of this party, what were this person's philosophical ideas, what were his parents like, what was he like, what had he done, and all these kinds of questions, because the homework had not been done before. There was a lot of scrambling. I mean, I can remember one national commentator saying to me after the night of the victory, I don't even know who your husband is. So the only story they had was the fact I used my name. And here all of a sudden was a man elected whose spouse acted like she was his equal.
Equal and ambitious. He was fighting to be prime minister. She went to school. When she became a lawyer, it made the national news.
I, Charles Joseph Clark, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
And when her husband became prime minister, she refused to play the traditional role of stay-at-home wife and mother. She shunned the press, told them she was too busy for interviews, busy working to reform the law. Ottawa newspaper editor Stevie Cameron.
I said to her at the time, why don't you let the press in to see how you're decorating the house at Christmas? Or, I mean, it's tried and true Ladies' Home Journal stuff, you know. Nancy Reagan or Linda or Lady Bird Johnson, they didn't give interviews, but they certainly allowed the press to come in and photograph the Thanksgiving table. They got an enormous amount of coverage that way, and they didn't, but they weren't mouthing off about abortion or rape law or whatever, the kind of things that got her into trouble. She's very honest and outspoken, and she can't open her mouth without being honest about how she feels on something. So I think a lot of people don't like her because the perception of her is of a snippy, paranoid personality.
It's always difficult to deal with people who are, you know, who are strong, if you will. And I have no doubt that I'm strong. I don't feel I'm particularly tough. In kind of, I think you have to be tough to be in politics. I don't feel I'm really tough.
You don't?
No, I don't. But I'm strong. I feel I'm a strong person, but I find I'm too sensitive for a lot of things.
Well, now that's an interesting thing to say, because I think that a lot of people have the impression of you as a tough woman.
But it goes with the pejorative definition of being a feminist. I mean, feminists are supposed to be ugly. I mean, they're supposed to be not nice people to be around. And of course, if you think some of the things that we have to do, I mean, we're trying to bring a society to a point where one group has always had an advantage, to a point where two groups share equally. And I tell you, if I had the great advantage, I probably would go kicking and screaming against having any of my privileges removed, too.
She's been out campaigning on her own, and today in Winnipeg, it all proved too much.
January 1980, McTeer's world was about to crumble. After just 9 months, Clark's government was going under, and still they were asking questions about her name.
I don't want you to think I'm a big part of it. I keep my name because I am proud of my name. And it means nothing with respect to no one else, and that's what you with tears now.
The wall she had so carefully built around her collapsed, and oddly, for the first time, she won some sympathy.
She has an enormous amount of courage, and she's overcome a crushing loss in terms of pride. Her pride was destroyed, and she's toughed it out in Fortress Stornoway with everyone out to get her husband. She's got enormous courage. She has become an extraordinarily beautiful woman. She's very thin. It doesn't photograph, but she's very thin. She has beautiful face, lovely eyes. Her clothes are, she's obviously not buying them in the department stores anymore.
Last fall, McTeer re-entered the spotlight, author of a best-selling book about Ottawa's official residences. The book was in part therapy for that loss, and having recovered, she is coping again with the uncertainties of another political test. If there is a noticeable change in McTeer, it is that publicly she has mellowed. There is in there a sense of humor. She will, albeit self-consciously, tell a story on herself.
In fact, the last time I was at the King Edward was to watch the royal wedding. I thought it was a sense of history that I should be lying with a very big head from the night before, sipping soda water while everyone was sipping champagne and eating croissants and trying to stay awake, thinking of my own wedding day.
The feminist is still here too, but her shrillness of the past is muted. Toronto Women's Advertising Club dinner.
For women in that part of the labor force that will be most affected or affected at all by the new technology, the alternatives are clear. We can retrain or be left behind.
This McTeer is being embraced, however tentatively, by her party. For some reason, her law degree, her bilingual fluency, her fierce ambition are being seen more as assets now than liabilities. Perhaps the party has changed too, and she, with some reservation, is responding.
But do you find that you're wandering around sort of worrying about who might be out to knife you, or whether this person you're about to meet is a friend or an enemy?
Oh, no. I think I just assume that I'm just going to go on my merry way, and if they have, if they're going to smile at me and be knifing me, it's their problem, really, if you think about it. I mean, they're the ones with the problem. I mean, I have a metal shield on my back. No. No, I just, there are times when it bothers me, especially if someone is very nice to you, continually very nice to you, and yet you know that they're knifing you. Then it becomes a bit tedious. I find it difficult is not to just to go up and say, excuse me, but don't tell me you're my friend one more time or I'll plow you.
I'm going to really shake the hand of a celebrity.
He'll be here in a minute.
Late this month, the Conservative Party will decide what to do about Joe Clark and Maureen McTeer. Secretly, at convention in Winnipeg, the party will vote for or against a leadership review. McTeer is as determined as ever to win, but now, perhaps for the first time, she's prepared for something else.
I hope the party will be strong and united, but it wouldn't surprise me if they weren't. I mean, strong and united. I mean, it would be great to have 100% of the people thinking you're marvelous all of the time, but they don't. And there's a lot of people who, I think last time a lot of people just were so hurt by 80. They didn't know how to get it out of their system except to hang the leader, if you will, and they did that now. I think some of them are feeling badly that they did. Some of the people certainly who are coming forward obviously are feeling badly that they did. And I also think that if anyone has earned the right to be leader and prime minister, Joe has. I think most thinking people in the party know that.